Hello everyone and welcome to Journeys in DevOps with Ranger 4 and IBM. Today we're featuring Hiscox and this is the first in this series. We hope you enjoy it. My name is Helen Beal, I work for Ranger 4. Ranger 4, we are fanatical about making life on Earth fantastic, and we do that via transforming organisations around DevOps principles. Joining me today we have Steve Hawkins from Hiscox and also Eric Minick from IBM. So, Steve, you're the customer that's been doing DevOps for a while now, so why don't you tell us a bit about where you started from and why you went down this path?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Helen. So we had a couple of distinct issues. I'm sure many people have experienced the same thing, where we've got people in for, say, long hours, well, mostly unsocial hours, doing deployments based on big runbooks, and there's every chance that we would see differences from one environment to another environment. So things had to change. We had to get faster. We had to improve the quality of our changes. So that's where we started from, really, to just a couple of distinct set of problems which we needed to improve on.
Okay. And where do you think you're going to go next? I mean, how did you start? Did you get some executive sponsorship, or did you try and build a small team, or what was it that got you kicked off?
We've been quite fortunate that our business is backing the initiative quite heavily, so they're very engaged with us. They helped us set up a small team to begin with. We start off with a proof of concept with a new technology to get a very small team together to try it out. We tried looking at a bunch of tools which we set up different POCs for to determine what ones would be the best ones to help us shape our processes to fit in with the DevOps principles. And once we saw success from one, we then just continued looking at our principles to continually assess our processes and improve on them, looking at new tool sets that could enable further improvements in our processes. And worked on more larger projects.
So what tools did you choose, and how did you start looking at them?
So the first set of issues was continuous integration for us. So we wanted our developers to be integrated more often, using easier tool sets, basically taking the thought away from that integration. So we looked at things like Jenkins, obviously, then TeamCity, and we're also looking at Bamboo at the moment as well. So those are all based around progression. So the further we got down our CI process, we then started looking at continuous delivery. So we've been looking at Urban Co-Deploy, which is the IBM product for deployment orchestration. And it's really about looking at the best CI tool to do handoffs to the delivery tools we're using. So Bamboo, we've noticed, has got better environment awareness as a CI tool. So that was an obvious choice for us to move to.
This is just so good, Stephen, because I heard this start off of kind of this pair of business needs of, hey, we need to go faster with higher quality, with the people culture side, right? Our people are doing all these deployments during their social hours. Let's get them home on the weekends and evenings. And then as you started talking about tools, you talked, well, we've got these DevOps principles, right? There's this culture that we're pursuing, and we're trying to find tools that really line up with that. So I guess my question for you here is, kind of, has this interplay between kind of principles and culture and what you're trying to do from a process, technology, business outcome, is that something you've been kind of cognizant of and you've really been trying to foster this whole time?
Definitely, yeah. Like you say, it's about a quality of life. If people are happier in their jobs, they're generally more productive. So the more of the monotonous, repetitive tasks, which, like you say, are done out of hours that can be automated, the more people can spend on improving. A good example is around infrastructure. We've spent a lot of time with people building up the infrastructure either scripted or manually, where that's just providing a box. If we can automate providing a box, then more of their time can be spent on looking at better ways of automating the whole process, and then better ways of being able to swap out that underlying infrastructure. They're the big stuff, the scary stuff, which we don't like doing that often. That's the kind of thing where their actual skill set can be used to design that, and therefore we can do bigger, scarier changes more often.
Which, it sounds like that you're able to get to the higher value work, and that's more interesting for the people too. And we were running the survey, and a lot of the people who joined early and took that survey of where are you in your journey were saying, yeah, we're really early. And I know for a lot of people, when they're looking at this DevOps thing and they see automation for continuous integration, infrastructure as code, application release automation, they're like, that tool looks an awful lot like my job. That's scary. So did you have that sort of resistance? Were people really frightened about losing their jobs? Did people lose their jobs? Kind of, where are you in that, if I can ask?
Yeah, so that's the obvious one, isn't it? It's the fear of this thing is taking away my job. We did have questions and concerns. Generally, it would be whenever we started introducing these principles and processes and procedures and ideas, as well as the technology that sits underneath them, you could see people that were quieter in the room. There's that sort of anxiety behind it. Obviously, once you show the proof of concept and what it can do and the benefits of it, which is also about bringing people together earlier on to talk about these issues. Like you mentioned earlier on about reaching out to the higher value items. Well, all the value which are given against those items are decided together in a team before we even start working on them. So instantly everyone feels more engaged as a team. They understand why there's all these blockers in place at the moment and how they can be broken apart by actually talking earlier on. So yeah, we haven't actually seen any job losses because of this. We haven't seen anyone not liking the process. I mean, there's definitely not liking the current way of doing things. So making those constant, continual improvements, people start seeing it as the actual, like I said, the principal part of it is what is important, not necessarily the process where it is right now.
Right, and I love that you're highlighting continuous improvement, because I think a lot of people hear DevOps and it's like, okay, is this the latest fad? Is this just some random word? But the moment you tie into kind of a continuous improvement model, it seems like suddenly you're compatible with like Lean, and I don't know, you're probably compatible with CMMI, right? Like you pick a framework, there's an idea of improvement in it. So I guess as you kind of marketed these ideas, did you say, hey, we're going to do DevOps? Or were you really focused on, say, business outcomes or continuous improvement? For people on the call today who are like, this DevOps thing sounds great, but I don't know how to bring other people internally along with me. Do you have any advice?
It's quite difficult, yes, I agree. The idea is obviously to take something small and work on that to begin with. Like we say, we had a distinct problem with one of our particular business areas, which we luckily got back in from the business and some budget to go in and put in this proof of concept of the simple CI, then CD, and then the business starts seeing the value that they've obviously invested, they start seeing the benefit and the value that they're receiving time over time, that increases. And then obviously the appetite for it increases, so more projects want it, they bring it on board. So that's the way we chose to do it. But also when you mentioned about the word of DevOps being a bit of a fad or that sort of thing, Jonathan Fletcher from Hiscox has coined the term biz DevOps test. It's not just that developer and operations thing. It's the business has to change the way that they deliver requirements to the development team. The developers have to change the way they talk with the ops. Ops have to, the whole testing has to be wrapped around every part of that process. So yeah, it's a lot more than just that simple automating the way you integrate, the way you deploy.
Where do you think you are now in terms of the adoption curve? Because I know that you've created a bit of a DevOps team, and we have a lot of debate in the DevOps world about whether that's what you do. But actually, I think it is an extremely effective kind of migration and transformation strategy, as you say, to kind of showcase what you can do and create that demand and help push it out there. But in terms of, have you got everyone in IT in the business on board? Are you there yet, or is there somewhere further to go?
Uh, yes, like you say, it's hard to when you're working on regular change and you're fighting through the fires day in day out. It's hard to take a step back and try and change processes, which is why we've benefited from, like I say, having our separate team, which is platform services, to try and help other teams adopt these principles, processes, and tools. So we're going through quite a big advertisement campaign internally as well. So we're trying to shout more about the successes we've had with the teams we've been working with internally at Hiscox to try and get more teams buy into this.
And how do you
and it is
how do you
sorry.
actually do that? Because that showcasing is quite hard. I mean, do you do it through lunch and learns or posters, or what is it that you're actually doing?
Well, yeah, so we do lunch and learns and donut and learns because we're here in London and we have quite a lot of teams in the US, so we have to do them in the afternoons. But yes, it's that case of showing people the small bits of the improvements, which generally being tech, it focuses on the tools, but really the tools are the after part of the they just help you get the processes done, which help you align with the principles. So yeah, that's how we get in with the developers and the operations people. But we do a lot of IT announcement meetings. So we have VCs with the whole of IT, and the business are involved in those meetings as well. And we take up half-hour slots or so there, just saying the successes, try and report as many metrics as we can to show how much benefit these new way of working gives the individual teams.
Was there a specific part of your business that was most enthusiastic about that? And if so, do you feel that was because they had a particular need, or do you think it was more actually the type of person that was in that bit of the business?
I think it's a bit of both. I say having good buy-in from the business helps out massively, but also when one of our biggest internal teams that's been using that we've been working with most closely is in the US, and they're a relatively new area for Hiscox, and they're growing very rapidly. So they have this specific requirement for faster pace of change at a higher quality, and the ability to create smaller teams within that can just work independently on delivering change. So obviously that the whole DevOps model helps with that.
So that's interesting because it sounds like earlier you said, hey, we got permission to do a proof of concept, and then the business saw the value, and it went viral in that part of the business. And then here you're talking about, I've got some part of my business that is growing quickly. It sounds like they're going after some new markets for you. They need IT to be fast, right? They need tech to be fast. So trying to put two and two together here, it sounds like where this is most important to you, or at least resonates most, is where IT is really a big part of how the business wins, right? It's integral to business success, and innovation is how you're hitting the market. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Okay. So it's not like that HR app that gets updated once a year. This is where you're focused. You're kind of where kind of quality, speed, and I mean, you guys are a financial company, so I'm sure regulation kind of all come together.
It's quite an interesting.
Exactly. I mean, we're.
Sorry, Karen, Steve.
Sorry, Helen. I was going to say it's exactly what the next thing which we're trying to say. We've upped our advertisement within. We're actually looking to set up a DevOps maturity report or something along those lines, because like you say, not everyone's going to benefit. It's all about the value at the end of the day. So not everyone's going to benefit from having faster pace of change. Like you say, if there's a HR tool which we update once a year, the value of adding continuous delivery is the value is probably not going to be there for the cost. But at the same time, as you say, financial organisation, if we do have parts of the organisation which need faster pace of change, but they also need some sort of process to say that only this individual or group of individuals can actually deploy to production, then you can put in a manual step at that point. So you can speed up everything beforehand, still have that regulatory auditing captured.
Cool. I was just going to say it's quite an interesting story around what app you kind of chose to get started with, because it's a thing we get asked all the time. Where do we start? And we obviously want to start often with kind of cultural or organisational change and interaction and process improvement rather than tooling. But when we get to the tooling part, it's like, well, which app do we start on? And quite often the kind of the gut instinct that you have is maybe to start with a small, lower risk app that may be a lower hanging fruit. But you guys actually started your DevOps journey with your core business platform as you were kind of modernizing and shrinking the number of components that made up that platform, didn't you? I think you used you called it the Da Vinci Project, which was simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So ultimately that's worked out very well for you. But do you want to talk us a bit through how that decision happened?
So I can't really speak much for how the decision happened on that one. Unfortunately, that was just before I started. But I can say for that project, it was a challenging one, as you say. It's a whole new platform. If I was to give recommendations for someone to decide on a project to start with, I'd say as much internal control as possible. So we do buy in products here, and one of the other outcomes we've had from our principles changes for the processes is around contract negotiation. So if you are dealing with any sort of provider for software, having good contract and communication back and forth to make alterations in the way you receive product changes and that sort of thing is vital. But yes, with the Da Vinci project, it was quite I would say our core business was changing. The business had already decided they had certain types of change that they wanted to deliver in certain time frames. So right from the project inception, there was that idea of faster pace of change. So obviously everything that DevOps brings in was ideal for that project.
Yeah, and 10% of nothing's nothing, right? So if you want to get lots of benefit out of something, actually doing something bigger should logically deliver you much more benefit to your business.
Exactly.
So Steve,
sorry, yes, Karen.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to ask, because you're going out to other parts of the business now, are you following that same model of, hey, give me something important that changes a lot?
Like I say, we're starting to look at some sort of maturity assessment for DevOps, which would help the business decide how much they need and help us understand as the platform services team where the weak spots are, so where they would get more benefit from different parts of the tool chain that we've got in place. I think most people can benefit from, like I say, the principles which don't really change, which is, as Helen pointed out earlier on, it's more the case of start finishing, stop starting, which is the idea. Yeah, like I say, deliver rather than take everything on and not deliver.
So do you have the kind of top level benefits that you've achieved? I mean, I think you were doing, for example, your releases were happening about once every 2 months prior to your DevOps project, and your continuous delivery, award-winning continuous delivery pipeline was built. About how many releases are you doing now, do you think, and how many more people have access to that piece of the process?
Well, because we were quite new to this one, and we've got quite small teams. We've given pretty much everyone in the team access to do most tasks. So now it's been the deployment process has been reduced to pretty much a single click. Anyone can do that anytime, and can even set up calendar schedules. No one's been quite brave enough to not be around when we are scheduling when we're doing a deployment to production and just schedule on the calendar yet. But it is possible. So I can take one of the stats that we pulled up to do with our advertisement recently was that on that DaVinci project we did around 6,000 deployments in 8 months. And that's just something which wouldn't have been possible previously. I mean, we worked it out roughly to try and get a kind of how much value have we gained from this new process. Taking those 6,000 deployments on the old way we did it would take 6 people working 24 hours a day, nearly 2 years to accomplish 6,000 deployments, and that's just doing the deployments. That's not the work that leads up to an actual release artifact.
Isn't it? It's just huge.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in terms of where you're getting to, I talk with Jonathan about this quite a lot, about kind of the idea of ideation to value realization. You know, how close are you to being able to report back to the business about not just the fact that you're doing so much more with the same resources, but actually what you're delivering from a code or a functional perspective is actually having an influence over how the business is performing, whether that's an increased number of people applying for policies or a faster policy turnaround rate, or you know, how close are you to there, do you think?
That's one of the hardest things we've been trying to capture in some sort of metric somewhere, is that, you know, so there's the expected business value from an item which goes on the backlog, which the business have an idea of how much they're going to make from this change, and then there's a way of recording it, which you know, being able to say, well, because we got there earlier, has that made an impact on that value? That's still something which we're trying to figure out how to capture.
Eric, have you got any other kind of case studies around that idea of value realization? It is kind of the ultimate utopian goal, I think, for me, with what we're trying to do with our customers with DevOps, but it's really tough to do because you have to integrate everything through the whole tool chain to be able to kind of say, when we first elicited that requirement and recorded that requirement, it cost us this much to go through all these pieces. So you've got to have requirements integrated to test, and then you've got to have a way of being able to monitor that business transaction live. And it gets additionally complicated if you're doing like 8,000 releases every 6 months. I can't work out quickly in my head how many that is a day, but when you are doing small iterations, it then becomes difficult to say, well, you know, that increase that we've seen on that was as a direct result of that iteration or that feature change, not that one or that one.
Yeah, and I mean, this is tough, right? I mean, when most people are doing their ROI analysis, they go to the easy thing. They say, okay, cool, 6,000 deployments. That would have been 8 people working 24 hours a day. So that's actually like, you know, 20 or what, three shifts. So that's like 24 man years. Wait, that's over 2 years. So it's like 48 man years. All right, we saved 48 man years. We can calculate out the labor savings there. Like that's how most people do ROI. But we're not doing this to like deploy a lot for less money, right? We're doing this because, hey, I want to get this feature out the door a week earlier, or a month earlier, or a quarter earlier. And you know, I love, Steve, that you guys are talking about cost of delay, right? This idea of this feature is worth this much money to us once it's out the door. So you can kind of do some math about, like, if we get it out the door a month earlier, what's that worth to us? But people really don't know what it's worth. It's kind of what I heard, and then proving that it was actually worth that, really hard. So that I think is kind of where we're going as an industry, is trying to figure that out and get better at those measurements. Are our experiments working? So I love the track you guys are on with that, because that's really what it's all about. And I saved labor is that's the excuse to corporate finance. if they don't buy into the whole, we're just going to make the company a lot more money now. Right, so I just went on a ramble there.
No, you've hit the
Okay. Let me circle back to something you were talking about, because you were saying earlier you started with continuous integration, right? I build automation for my developers, and that naturally led to continuous delivery and deployment automation. So you end up with a tool chain with a Jenkins or a Bamboo going into an Urban Code deploy and some infrastructure automation. And then you started saying, but that's changing a lot of our other processes now that we're able to go faster. Right? It sounded like QA had to change, maybe your requirements had to change. Are you seeing kind of that whole kind of macro process shift is related to your DevOps journey? Kind of, how's that going?
Definitely, like I say, as that middle part, if you like, like you say, the CI and the CD part changed. There's if you can just get an automated deployment into a test environment, and you still got people manually testing, as in full functional integration regression testing, there's only so much that they can test in a period of time. It's as fast as you can get those deployments into that test environment, there's still a delay there. So automating the testing was the next step, and we're starting to look into things like Cucumber to do BDD, and that will obviously start meaning we can automate a lot more of that what would have been manual test effort. So that should mean they can then increase stuff to go to the next environment, should be something like the user acceptance one. So does it look right on the screen? And therefore the people actually testing it manually, they're not just clicking through scripts of functional test, regression test. They're spending the time using it. Is it actually user friendly? Is it the way it should be? Sort of thing. And yeah, like you say, back to the business. Now that backlog needs more work on prioritization and what value comes out of each item. The business is more involved with the development and the operations, and basically the team, to point those items.
Great. So we're coming up to sort of the end of the half-hour chat. So we do have quite a few questions actually, and they're often related to something we've already discussed. But I think we should probably start on the questions now. So the first one's from Gao, and it's, are there any suggestions for the case of a mixed team? So a mix of internal IT and potentially outsourced dev and or outsourced ops. And I'll start answering this one because we have quite a lot of experience, because the vast majority of our customers have some kind of complication around their IT resource setup. So we have some customers, for example, that provide managed service of software that they don't develop themselves. So they kind of get involved at the testing and then the deployment and management part of that. But then they need to get the requirements from their customers looped back into the development team that's another company. And I think, the base of all of this, we're really talking about the people. So just because the people have a different person paying their paycheck doesn't mean that they're not all on the same team and all actually trying to achieve the same things. But the challenges become around things like DevOps is often at its most effective when it's mandated from quite a senior level. And if it's mandated in your organisation but not the SI partner that you're working with or your dev partner, then that becomes additionally challenging. So you kind of have to put some extra effort into sharing and collaborating and showcasing and selling the idea all the way through it. In terms of benefits and things, I've seen UK government organisations that have had SIs doing their deployments, and they've been using, some fairly standard platforms like Web Application Server, but people have had to have 140-page manuals to be able to build up a WAS server in order to deploy their core app. And actually implementing something like an automation tool like Urban Code, they managed to get down to that kind of one button push. So, huge productivity savings made there. Eric, what are your experiences in terms of this kind of mixed team?
Yeah, DevOps is often about bringing people in different silos together, and man, when people in other silos work for different companies, it's just a little bit harder. It's the same goal, same challenge. It is people. People have relationships, and you can leverage that. But it's like, hey, but the contract you signed with us says we work some different way, and if we don't follow the contract, you might sue us, right? Um, so sometimes it gets into legal changes. But yeah, I mean, I've spent the last 8, 10 years with my clients who are adopting some sort of CI/CD tool, and production was owned by some outsourcing company. And you're the customer at the end of the day, and you're going to win this conversation eventually if you try hard enough. To say, hey, we all got to use the same tools. We need to change how we work. So you might get some pushback, but people come on board because it's the right thing to do, and it's better for everybody at the end of the day. So you got to do some legwork. I've At the same time, I think this might inform some of our outsourcing strategies. I look back to the debacle we had in the United States as we put out our kind of healthcare, national healthcare sign-up website, and it all fell apart. You look at that, and there were 18 different major outsourcing companies in there, and we were handing different parts of it to each one, and they all knew that they were going to be bidding on maintaining the whole system later, and so we divvied it up into a lot of different groups and expected it all to come together, and Conway's Law said that it can't. So you need to find people who are going to partner with you and are going to partner with each other and act like grown-ups, but as the end customer here, you need to set that expectation, and it should be okay.
So I didn't start with Steve on the answer of this because actually Hiscox are one of our customers that has less of a kind of fragmentation, if you like, in terms of the way that the IT function is resourced. But Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, or do you have a view on this as well?
No, like I said earlier on, we do actually we buy in products, software. So even with the Da Vinci project, especially, we had two different companies providing software to us, and one of the things I can know from Eric is that we noticed as we were working closer with them, and they saw what we were doing and the demands we put on them to receive changes in a different way at a faster pace. They actually started asking us what we were using and how we were building up our processes and principles. So yeah, as long as you, I mean, like I said, we're all people. We're all capable of communicating and talking with each other and getting along. So as long as you've got that good relationship with your provider, yeah, it can work really well.
Excellent. It definitely can work. We're all proving it. So yeah, some challenges, but as you say, we're all people and we can all talk to each other, and ultimately we all need to understand that often we're on the same team, even though some days it doesn't always feel that way. So a comment from Naren. We at Cisco built a small lab, incubated the new ALM toolchain, and demoed the incremental value improvements across the development cycle. We found show and tell it was the best pitch because it's pretty much proved out already. And I think this isn't so much a question as an observation, and I absolutely agree with it. I had a customer recently that asked me, and we were talking about service virtualization, and they asked me what to do with applications that couldn't be virtualized, and I was a bit like, well, what application couldn't be virtualized? And actually, what she was asking is the business wouldn't let her do it because they didn't believe it could be done. And I said, well, what you need to do is you need to start with a small bit and not stop doing what you're doing now, but add in that process and prove it. And once they see it working, you can start doing more and more of it. So yeah, the kind of the showcasing success as you described your advertising campaign, I think is really key. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, definitely. It's the show pieces as you're going along, taking on small bits. Like you said, it's about start finishing, stop starting. So it's taking on something which you can finish, show some value from it, and then build on it.
Eric, have you got any other sort of case stories about how people showcase their successes?
I think the important thing is just to know that you've got to do it. I've worked with a few DevOps teams that kind of thought, well, if I build it and it's awesome, people will clearly clamor to get on it. But you actually have to tell people it's there and why it's going to make their life better. You have to do some marketing. You have to push through it. Even at IBM, we've got a DevOps center of competency, and they spend a lot of energy, marketing to our like hundreds of thousands of technical people, saying, yeah, this is how we're going to do things in the future, and this is why, and here's some good tool chains, and you got to be a people person, and you got to do the marketing and kind of selling to really see the change happen quickly. And a lot of people overlook it, and I think it's awesome that you guys at Hiscox kind of get that, and I think it's one of the reasons you've been so successful.
Definitely. So the final question that we have at the moment, we'll start with Steve to answer this one. So is the maturity assessment essentially a crafted questionnaire?
I say we're still trying to put one together at the moment. So, but yes, from what we've seen, it's pretty much a crafted questionnaire. Yeah. So, I mean, you can Google and see there's many out there at the moment. They usually fall into sort of tiers of continuous integration, continuous delivery, but there's also other more principal level stuff. So team sizes and that sort of thing as well. So, it's pretty much a grid.
And we haven't done one of these with you because you are actually kind of quite advanced, but we do maturity assessments with quite a few organisations. So, when people say, where do we start, you start by baselining what you're doing today, and we can assess that. And we actually split ours into kind of three areas, which is the kind of organisational maturity, interaction maturity, and then the tool chain or automation maturity. And the cultural one is the really interesting one. So we've been doing this type of work for well over a decade, but we used to call it like a process improvement assessment. It was around the SDLC, but what DevOps has really brought to the table, which is quite different, is this idea of cultural change, and that we're trying to tackle some of these kind of cultural frustrations or the manifestations of conflict that the pressures of digitization and the pressures of fragile infrastructures have brought to bear. So the cultural one is interesting because people go, how do you measure culture? And it is a crafted questionnaire. So we're asking questions around how blame is dealt with, what people's approach to failure is, how ideas are received and acted upon, lots of organisational kind of happiness and maturity type questions. And then the tricky bit about that, though, is that we haven't found a way yet of translating that kind of cultural quantification, if you like, into any kind of business case. And we know, and it's quite clearly stated in the State of DevOps report, I think it was the 2014 one that kind of majored on this. We know that happier people are more productive people, so we know we get more out of our human resources if we can ensure that they're getting what they want to make them feel kind of satisfied and inspired and autonomous and have mastery and purpose at work. But actually saying to a CFO, right, we're going to do this DevOps change program, everyone's going to be 20% happier, which means the business is going to be making 20% more revenue, just doesn't stack up yet. But we might find a way in the end. Eric, sorry, Cam.
Yeah, I haven't found the way to bring human resources in as an ally there yet, but I feel like it's there. We've also internally we do crafted survey. Got an external one we do as well through our services arms. The other thing that we do that seems to be a good starting point is doing kind of a process workshop where you'd get everybody involved in kind of some big application or application area, the program management people, developers, ops folks, QA. You get them in a room for about a day, which is a big commitment. And you kind of drill into, hey, what is our process? And it's really informative because no one knows what the process is. Everybody knows their part. Right? It's like the blind men and the elephant scenario. And they all kind of make assumptions about what everybody else is doing. And it's a good empathy building exercise. But then you get to start talking about, okay, what part of our process is really painful? Where are we going slow? What do we need to see changed? And you get right into the meat of kind of where people want to transform, and it kind of quickly rallies the whole team around 2 or 3 things to go work on. Gives you kind of that alignment, to use bad business terms. And it's really a great exercise, and we spend a lot of time at a whiteboard. So that's the other approach that I've seen people take really successfully when they're kind of kicking off and trying to get going.
Yeah, definitely. We have like a Liftoff workshop that we do as well, which is very similar. It's like, very interactive exercises. We play a game called Feature Ban and introduce people to Kanban, and we do some quite kind of some neurological science around motivation and try and get to building a business case and roadmap. And yeah, that getting everyone in a room thinking about it and talking together is really important. So Steve, I think you had a comment on what we were talking about as well.
Yeah, it's like you're saying earlier on about the show and tells. The show and tells are usually around some process, but the tooling and that sort of thing. It's the culture which is the fun one to show people. So most of our offices are open plan, and where we've had the teams running with these new processes, where they're all talking a lot, they've got the whiteboards up. You get other people seeing in, and then maybe dropping by, and they'll just say, "This you guys look like you're having fun with this. What's going on? What are you all doing?" And that's where we've gained more advertisement as well. It's showing that cultural difference as well.
I think that's a great place to probably finish today's chat. Is that at the core of all of this, we're trying to make everything more fun, make everything more enjoyable. As I said, we've got this tagline at Range of 4 that we're fanatical about making life on Earth fantastic, and that's really what we're trying to do with DevOps, is make just everything a lot easier and better and nicer to be around for everyone. So thank you very much to our panelists, Eric and Steve, for today. That is all the questions that we've been asked. So thank you to the audience for your time and your attentiveness. And we will be in touch with a follow-up email, and do let us know if you have any questions. So thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.